Hi, I'm Andrea.
I'm Claudia.
And we're the Judgy Crime Girls.
Hello and welcome. Well, before we get into anything, we would like to shout out our new subscribers,
Gabrielle
and Molly. Thank you so much for joining Judgy After Dark.
We are so glad that you're with us, and you guys will get to enjoy Friday cases that are ad-free every single week, and you'll get a discount on our merch.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best part.
Shopping.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if I could just mention something right away, I was very excited when I saw this. After 49 years, DNA testing brings closure to a Cedar Rapids teen's disappearance. His name is Michael Schicht. Authorities in Orange County, California announced earlier this week they believe the Schicht was one of the first victims of a serial killer, Randy Stephen Kraft, who was also known as the scorecard killer. I have never heard of him. Have you?
No.
Now, his sister recently told investigators that she hadn't seen her 17-year-old brother since April of 1974. And his body was found and labeled as a John Doe a few months later in Southern California. But now, 49 years later, state-of-the-art DNA testing has identified his remains.
I hope his mom and dad were alive to see that come to light.
I didn't see anything about that. Now, the scorecard killer is actually still on death row for the murders of 16 people, but they believe that he killed as many as 67. Including Michael from Cedar Rapids.
I want to know, what is the average time someone sits on death row? Because too long.
Jana, can you explain that to me?
Oh, here we go. According to deathpenaltyinfo.org, death-sentenced prisoners in the U.S. typically spend more than a decade on death row prior to being executed. Some prisoners have been on death row for well over 20 years.
Unbelievable. The reason why it also takes so long is because you have to allow them to go through all their appeals.
Yeah. Death row and 20 years, and then
they have to go through all their appeals.
Which to some extent, I don't mind, because there have been so many people who have been found guilty but are actually innocent. Mm-hmm. And I would hate for someone to be killed that didn't deserve it.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I found a documentary that I really think we both need to jump on right away. And it's called Wild Crime Blood Mountain. And it is on Hulu. And it looks at how a missing woman's case sparked an investigation into a possible serial killer. And it was the 2008 New Year's Day case of Meredith Emerson, who went missing when she went out for a hike in Georgia's Vogel State Park with her dog, Ella.
Oh, wow. Is it out already or coming soon?
It's out already.
Oh, okay.
It just released. You like Supernatural, right?
Love it.
There's a cruise coming out next year.
I'm going on it.
Rihanna wants to take Isaiah for his graduation gift or
Does
whatever.
Does he like it?
Whenever. Yeah, he watches it. He's watched it like 3 times now. He loves it. I can't remember when it's coming.
I'm so in.
Whenever Isaiah graduates. So that's all that I've got.
That's all I got.
I hope you guys are about all done with your shopping, baking, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can relax. So what you got for us?
Yeah, so today I'm going to tell you about Tanja Ebert, who disappeared in Australia after her husband said they had an argument. And Tanja and her husband and their 2 kids lived on a remote outback property. And allegedly, she left without any of her belongings.
Oh, no.
So this, like I just said, case took place in Australia. And I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about the area where Tanja lived so you can get a better idea of everything, like the bigness of it.
Okay.
So South Australia is the only Australian state to have never received British convicts. Now, I knew back in the day the Brits would send their convicts off to Australia, which was kind of uninhabited, and have them fend for themselves in the jungle or whatever. So that was their prison. So back between 1788 and 1868, more than 162,000 convicts were transported to Australia as a punishment for crimes committed in Britain and Ireland.
This is genius.
Yeah, send them to a remote island.
Why don't we do that? Everyone else that's in Australia, just come here and we'll just put all of the bad people there.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be other islands. Australians are probably pretty happy about their place, I think. Yeah, so they sent them there, first of all, because it was far away from Britain and they didn't have to deal with them. And so there were a total of 19 crimes that got you sent to Australia. And here are just some of those 19 crimes. Grand larceny, theft above the value of 1 shilling, petty larceny, theft under 1 shilling. But get this will get you sent to the island, impersonating an Egyptian.
I don't understand how Britain can just give the responsibility to Australia. Oh.
I mean, they were ruled by the British. Their money has the Queen's face on it, and indigenous people were there. But other than that, Australia was not a very habitable place.
And what year are we in?
1788 to 1868.
Oh, wow.
So a long time ago. America was like a baby in 1788.
Okay, I think I was confused because I looked up pictures of Tanja Ebert, and they look very recent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm just telling you a little bit about the state where Tanja lived, so you get an idea about the place where she disappeared. And this one was just kind of like a fun fact.
That's very interesting. I was just confused how it related to the case, I guess.
It doesn't at all.
Good to know. Good to know.
It was just, I'm sure there are a lot of people that didn't know that. But a couple more things that got you sent off to the island was bigamy, stealing fish from a pond or river, counterfeiting the copper coin, and lots more. There were, like I said, a total of 19 crimes. So South Australia is 4th largest of Australia's states and territories by area, and 2nd smallest state by population, with more than 77% of South Australians living in the capital, Adelaide. So as of March 2022, there were a little over 1.8 million people living in South Australia. Now, that state is about 45% bigger than Texas. And Texas' population in 2022 was a little over 30 million people.
So I wonder what the crime rate is like now in Australia.
Well, so when I think of South Australia, the state, the first thing that comes to mind are the Beaumont children, the Truro murders. And just like I said, just kind of gives you an idea of how big South Australia is. So 23-year-old Tanja Ebert was from Germany, living in South Australia, and she vanished on August 8th, 2017. So just a little over 6 years ago. Now, there is currently a $200,000 reward for anyone with information that could lead to the recovery of Tanja's body. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a whole lot of personal information on Tanja, and that may be because she didn't or doesn't get a whole lot of press. But there's not a lot out there. But Tanja left an impression on everyone. She was very tanned and she was very lean, very athletic. and blonde hair. She looked very German to me when I saw pictures of her. She had the most beautiful smile. She was very opinionated, worldly, and very beautiful. And she actually ran a huge sheep station or farm with her husband and 2 young boys outside of Manahill, which is a remote town in eastern South Australia, about 4.5 hours northeast of Adelaide. Now, that town, Manahill, only has like 6 permanent residents. It's like in the outback. Their closest neighbor was 34 kilometers away, or about 21 miles.
Thank you.
Your closest neighbor, 21 miles away.
They must have had an extremely large farm.
They did. Their farm, Olnina Park, was 410 square kilometers, which is a little over 101,000 acres.
Wow.
That's huge. So Olnina Park was a historic property used mainly for sheep grazing. It had been passed down to her husband Michael from his father, who was a well-known rancher in the region. When you drive to their house, it takes 10 minutes to drive from their front gate to the actual house.
That's crazy.
And they had about 6,000 merino sheep on their station or ranch. So Tanja came to Australia with friends as a backpacker when she was 19 years old. She was taking a gap year and she just wanted to experience life. She was always very adventurous. She ended up in the outback and she worked at a local pub to supplement her income. And that's where she met Michael Burden, a handsome farmer, and her life changed forever. So when she met Michael, she was actually initially not totally into him. He was 18 years older than her, but she later told a friend that he was super charming and he was very persistent in pursuing her. Now, at one point, she was in a really bad car accident and he visited her in the hospital every day. And she thought that was just the sweetest thing. And friends said they were a match made in heaven.
Well, that's rare to have such a large age difference.
Yes.
And to be, but good for them.
Yeah, their relationship moved pretty quickly, too. They had 2 children, 3 and 1, by the time Tanja disappeared. Now, remember, she was 19 when they met, and he was 37, so she had her first child when she was only 20 years old. Tanja learned very quickly how to become a sheep farmer or a sheep rancher. She had to learn to shear the sheep, herd the sheep, and she also did all the bookkeeping for the ranch.
This ranch, I'm looking at pictures. There's multiple buildings. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, I don't want to say a school, but it's like running your own factory or whatever, a farm. It's ginormous.
Yes, it is huge. Their house, I think, was a 5 or 6 bedroom house. Yeah, so she did all the bookkeeping for the ranch. And before she disappeared, Tanja was actually talking about breeding and training working dogs, which I'm sure they need for their farm.
Yeah.
She was also a member of the local amateur theater group and took part in a handful of productions.
Oh, neat.
Mm-hmm. So Tanja and Michael got married in February of 2017, which is only about 6 months before she vanished. Her family was able to fly in from Germany to see her get married. And in April of 2017, she flew to the Bahamas to attend her friend's wedding there. And she also got to visit Germany. Wow. So the first half of 2017 was super busy for her. Her own wedding was beautiful. Andrea, it looked so Australian to me. She was gorgeous. I will put up some pictures for everybody on Facebook, but the whole story kind of reminded me. Have you ever seen the Nicole Kidman and Hugh Jackman movie, Australia. That's just what everything reminds me of. So they got married on the highest point on their property, but the picture you're looking at, all that back there is all their property.
Wow.
You can imagine how huge it is.
It's as far as the eye can see. Wow, what a way to start your life.
Yeah.
And the house is beautiful, historic home. It's amazing.
I thought maybe it was a little unusual for a 19-year-old, I mean, she's a teenager, to end up in the outback where there's nothing there. I would probably go to a city.
Same. I would go crazy out there. I feel safer where there's more people around. I wouldn't want to live in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And then doing it with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, amazing. Tanja also concentrated on creating as many opportunities as possible for her 2 sons. She joined a nonprofit group called Remote and Isolated Children's Exercise, which provides health, childcare, and education services to families living on remote properties in the South Australian outback. Now, whenever possible, the couple would take their boys on trips to Adelaide. They would go to museums, art galleries, or just to the beach, which takes us now to August of 2017 when she disappeared. Tanja, Michael, and their kids had spent August 8th in Adelaide visiting the museum, with the last confirmed sighting via CCTV cameras of Tanja in the city that afternoon. 2 days later, August 10th, an unnamed family member reported her missing, but it wasn't her husband that reported her missing.
Where was her husband those 2 days?
Good question. So we don't know who the unnamed family member is, but I suspect it was Tanya's family.
Of course.
Now, cell phone reception in the middle of the outback wasn't very good, so whenever her family called the house, whoever answered had to actually go out and find her and tell her she had a phone call. So it wasn't super easy to get a hold of her, and I'm sure at first maybe they thought, she's probably out and about or whatever. So anyway, police go to the sheep station, and initially Michael tells police that him and Tanja got into a small fight and that they had stopped at a gas station on the way home where he got drinks for everyone, and they went on their way. He said that about a mile down the road, Tanja got very agitated, and that somewhere along the way, she told him to stop the car in the middle of nowhere. She got out of the car and walked off into the bush with $2,000 in cash, but no phone, no purse, or her children. Now, who does that? Nobody.
Was that on camera?
No, they were in the middle of nowhere. Supposedly, they got into a fight. She got mad, told him to stop, and she just walked off.
No.
Yeah, no, especially not without her children. She loved those boys, Andrea. She loved those boys. But he leaves her there. Like, he drove all the way back to Manahill. It's about a 4-hour drive from Adelaide to Manahill, where they live.
Yeah.
And there were only about an hour or so outside of Adelaide. So they still had a little over 3 hours to go home. And he leaves her there, where she allegedly got out of the car, and drives home.
Wow. No.
Yeah, he was kind of like, meh, she'll find her way back home, if she wants to. So now I also want to mention that August in Australia is winter time. Now we might think it's always blistering hot in Australia, but it's not.
What?
Yeah. So their seasons are totally opposite from ours. They have summer now. And it does get pretty cold there at night in the outback. So the average temperature at night is about 45 degrees.
That's chilly.
And she wasn't wearing full-on winter clothes either. Now, police must have thought that's bullshit too, because they did some checking into Michael's movements from Tuesday, August 8th, until the time Tanja was reported missing on the 10th. Now, there's a period of several hours on Wednesday that they can't account him for. And there's also a period on the 9th that they can't account him for as well. Police also know for a fact that Tanja made it back to the ranch with him. They never really said or elaborated on how they know that, but they do. And my guess is they saw some kind of camera footage somewhere.
Yeah.
So they started searching the property. They wouldn't let anyone come or go so they can track the tire tracks and, stuff like that.
Was her phone with her?
He said she walked off. She left her phone, her purse.
She left her phone. Okay.
Yeah, she left everything.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Right.
So a week later, on August 16th, police go back to search the ranch again and to let Michael know that they think Tanja had been murdered, but that he is not quite a suspect yet. But since there was no sightings of her, no social media presence, no phone calls to family, no nothing, they pretty much knew that she was no longer alive. They knew she didn't walk off. So Michael was upset that the police was tearing up the property. I mean, they went in with horses, motorbikes, heavy machinery, mining experts, because there are mines on that property and caves and waterways. I mean, that property had everything, and they were looking for her. But Michael was not upset because they were tearing up the property looking for his wife. No, he was upset because they were just digging holes.
Well, wouldn't you want them to do that?
Well, yes, right?
Yeah.
Especially if I don't have anything to hide. I mean, dig up the whole place if you want to.
Right.
So while the police was talking to Michael and also checking the house and vehicles, Michael excused himself to go to the bathroom, and the police momentarily lost sight of him. And just a few short minutes later, they heard a muffled gunshot.
Oh.
That coward walked out of that house and shot himself.
Because he did it.
Yeah. Fortunately, his sons didn't see anything. So after many interviews with friends and family, police believed that Tanja was unhappy and she was planning to leave Manahill. And when she told Michael that day that she was going to leave him, he lost it and he killed her. But if you ask Michael's mother, she still believes that Tanja ran off. She also complained that police left the station a mess after, a near week-long search and digging concluded. She said, quote, "It was like an invasion. They ripped up roads, they twisted water piping, big machinery was left without fuel, and then had to be bled by mechanics in order for it to be working again." And while she said she understood that there are crimes of passion, she didn't think her son was involved in any way in a crime of passion. But she also added, quote, "He knew the station, every stone on the property. If Michael had hidden the body, nobody would find it." Mm-hmm. So she knows.
Yeah, basically she's saying you're never going to find her.
And it doesn't sound like she's very worried about her daughter-in-law, that's been missing for a week at that point.
Mm-mm. No, her main concern there is the property.
Mm-hmm. So in 2019 and 2020, police dog Tilly was brought onto the property to search for Tanja's remains, but they have not had any luck so far. Now, please remember how huge that property is. I mean, it's over 101,000 acres. That's miles and miles. And it might take them a very long time to find her.
Right. Probably will need more than just one dog. But I don't know how that works. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at the police press interview, you will hear them pretty much say that they know Michael's family knows more than they let on, and probably even helped him, because there are on both days a few hours that he was unaccounted for. So they think That's when he drove out to do whatever he did.
Or he had his parents watch the boys.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So they do know from locals, nothing gets by them, that Michael's mother was on the property during the 2 days nobody reported Tanja missing. So she was there maybe to watch the boys while he got rid of her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can't do much with a 1-year-old.
No. Even with a 3-year-old.
Yeah, you would have to have help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe they wouldn't know, but if she was on the property,
yeah,
she would know.
So as of today, they have not found Tanja. I think that property now is up for lease. You can lease it. I want to lease it just to dig up the whole property.
I hope the next owner of that property just is more than willing to work with.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they continue to search.
Well, major crime investigators believe there are people in the community who know exactly what happened to Tanja, and they encourage those people to speak up. Michael still remains the main suspect, even though he's not around. Tanya's 2 boys are still living in Australia with Michael's mother, and like I've mentioned earlier, there is a $200,000 reward for any information leading to the recovery of Tanja's body. And if you have any information, you can share what you know without saying who you are or getting involved by calling Crime Stoppers, which is my nonprofit for today. Well, this is for Australians. You can call 1-800-333-000, or you can go to crimestopperssa.com.au and you can leave an anonymous tip.
Wow, Claudia, that's insane. Very sad.
Very sad. Tanya's mom went to Australia and she said the real victims are the 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
And she said we're grieving for Michael too. They have hope that it's true what he told the police, but I think deep down they know it's not.
Well, it just doesn't make sense that she would just up and leave like that.
Yeah.
Who does that? Where would she go?
Right. Now, the $2,000 she walked off with is just according to him. There's no proof. He said they had that amount of cash for bills they were going to pay. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense either, that you would take them all the way to Adelaide, an over 4-hour drive. But whatever, that she would just get out of the car and walk into the outback in the middle of winter by herself, an area that she was not familiar with.
Well, I mean, I'm sure probably some sort of fight ensued where she did want to be away. Mm-hmm. Something happened, but I don't think she would go anywhere without her kids.
No,
I'm
she
with
would
you
not.
on that.
Yeah. There's no way she would have gotten out in the middle of nowhere and just leave. I think they did have a fight starting in the car. And when they got home, she's probably said, I'm leaving you. And the police could not find any proof that she died in the house, but he could have taken her out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the vast wilderness is terrifying.
And very much so.
Those wedding pictures just break your heart now looking at them. That's awful. And here I was saying, well, I'm so happy it worked out for them, the age difference. It's interesting that even the family was still, even now, just, well, I don't think he did it. Like, to me, him shooting himself almost just confirmed that he did it, to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't have anything to hide, why would you go and do that? I did think it was strange for a 37-year-old to pursue a 19-year-old.
That just breaks my heart. Well done. Thanks for sharing.
Well, don't impersonate an Egyptian in Britain if you're ever there. That will land you on the island.
The only time I do that is when I hear the 80s song, Walk Like an Egyptian. And now I'm just forever going to see these crazed lunatics in the Australian wilderness.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much. You did a great job, girlfriend.
Thank you.
All right. Stay sassy.
Stay judgy.
And stay tuned in with the Judgy Crime Girls every other Wednesday. Okay, we love you. Bye.
Bye.